What if Yoda became Sidious's apprentice instead of Anakin? Palpatine has just been elected as Supreme Chancellor and he kills his master Darth Plagueis the Wise. He is now the Dark Lord of the Sith and it is up to him to overthrow the Jedi. In the original timeline, Palpatine planned to have Anakin as his apprentice, sensing the strong Force abilities within the boy. But as he contemplated turning him to the dark side, he couldn't help but remember his master's concerns, born from a prophecy that dictated he would destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force. If Palpatine took this boy as an apprentice, there is a strong chance he is training him to destroy the Sith. He made the decision that he couldn't have him as an apprentice as it would only make fulfilling the prophecy easier. Because of this, Palpatine elects to follow a different path to corrupt an even more formidable and powerful entity, Grand Master Yoda of the Jedi Order. Turning Yoda to the dark side would do many great things for his grand plan, such as gaining a Force user with, until recently, the highest midichlorian count to date. But it also threw the Jedi Order into chaos, with their Grand Master of the Order for hundreds of years turning to the dark side, causing many to question the Jedi. Sidious knew that Yoda was one of the most selfless and kind people in the galaxy. He was the true embodiment of what it meant to be a Jedi. And because of this, it would quite literally be impossible to turn him to the dark side through conventional methods. He couldn't speak to Yoda and manipulate him into becoming dark. It would never work. Instead, Palpatine travels to the ancient Sith world Korriban, known now as only a Sith graveyard. He had come to collect an item his master Darth Plagueis spoke of frequently throughout his life. If he was to be honest with himself, he didn't even know if it was real. He marches to the grave of the ancient Sith Lord Exum Panchard. Using his crimson lightsaber, Sidious opens the grave to find the disjointed bones and corpse of the ancient lord. Reaching down, Sidious pulls the mask of Exum Panchard from his skull. This was what he came for. In Sith folklore, the mask of Exum Panchard contains the screams of thousands of innocent beings, anyone who had been corrupted by darkness. He knows if he can force his mask on Yoda, there will be nothing that could ever turn him back to the light. The Sith Lord returns to Coruscant. As he arrives, he learns that Jedi Knight Obi-Wan Kenobi killed Darth Maul on Naboo, and the Trade Federation's invasion of the planet had been defeated. Palpatine, alongside many Jedi such as Master Yoda, were traveling to Naboo in order to celebrate the planet's victory, but also to pay tribute to Qui-Gon Jinn, who lost his life during the battle. This was Palpatine's perfect chance to turn Yoda, as he couldn't do it when the Master was on Coruscant. He waits until after Qui-Gon's funeral, when Yoda is walking home. After saying his farewells to Master Windu and Plo, and shares his condolences with Kenobi, he begins to go back to his place. Palpatine waits in the shadows, his hood concealing his identity and the Force masking his presence. When they are completely alone, Sidious's eyes burn a golden hatred as he blasts Yoda with the most powerful Force lightning attack he had ever conjured, knowing the stakes of getting it wrong. Just like in Revenge of the Sith, Yoda is hit and sent flying backwards, hitting the wall unconscious. Sidious knew that he had to act fast, so he took Yoda to House Palpatine's old palace on the outskirts of Theed, long abandoned since Palpatine murdered his family under the order of Plagueis. Here, Palpatine places the mask onto Yoda's face, causing the Green Goblin to wince in discomfort. A dark red light shot from the sky and hit Yoda. The dark side was corrupting him. As he struggled with the object on his face, the Force was making its move, attacking Yoda's inner strength and wisdom, corrupting him to the point of no return. Within mere seconds, Yoda's body was thrusted into the air with lightning expelling from the mask. Then, all of a sudden, it stopped, and Yoda was stationary. Yoda had been turned to the dark side of the Force. Rising from the floor, Sidious would tell him to pledge himself to being his apprentice. The mask didn't change Yoda's life. He still carried all of his memories and knowledge from the last 900 years, but it simply turned him to the dark side and the hatred within him grew. He had no redeeming qualities anymore, and he was a monster. He tells the Sith Lord that he is the master and that Palpatine will bend the knee before him, not vice versa. The tone of his voice indicated to Palpatine that Yoda had successfully been turned. Sidious ignites his lightsaber, knowing that the only way to decide this difference of opinion was through a lightsaber duel. Yoda leaps forward, his blade emanating an emerald glow. They fought with speed and agility, leaping around the room like a blur, knocking old glasses and chairs to the floor. Sidious was more attuned to the dark side and its powers, and used this to his advantage, beating Yoda to the ground and placing him under submission. Yoda lowers his head. He is the apprentice. Sidious dubs him Darth Yoda, not wanting to change his name, knowing the effect it would have on the Jedi in the later years. After Naboo, Yoda would leave the Jedi Order and get off Coruscant, where he goes into hiding. He would begin his training as a Sith, learning all there is to know about the dark side. The Jedi Order was extremely devastated when they heard that Yoda had left. None of them could understand why. It made no sense to anyone, but each person in the Republic had their own conspiracy theory. He was the glue of the Order and had been so for many years. Mace Windu would take over as Grand Master of the Order and try to preserve Yoda's legacy. None of them knew that Yoda had turned to the dark side. It stayed a well-kept secret between Sidious and Yoda. Sidious would teach Yoda many things over the following years. When they began to train together, Sidious didn't need to do much, just guide him on his journey through the dark side. This was a very different approach to Darth Maul, when he trained him from infancy and had to instill the Force within him. Yoda had been practicing the ways of the Force for almost a millennia, and it showed in his skills. He was strong, daring, capable, and a master of every technique he devoted himself to. Yoda was able to fire Force lightning with such precision that most Sith Lords could never do. His ability stretched so far that he could absorb others' lightning and Force powers with his bare hands, store its energy, and unleash it himself to create an even stronger version of lightning. His lightsaber skills also developed, coupled with his innate acrobatic style of fighting. The darkness made it 10 times deadlier and far more frightening to face. Yoda was a force to be reckoned with, and Sidious knew that he had trained one of the most powerful and capable Sith Lords of all time. If only he were a couple of 100 years younger and in his prime, Sidious thought to himself. Palpatine would begin the Clone Wars with Count Dooku as the figurehead of the Separatist movement. The beginning of the war would look very similar to the original timeline, with chaos and death reigning across the galaxy, worlds enslaved and pillaged. But also, the Jedi Order works tirelessly to ensure they can save as many lives as possible. Sidious knew that at some point, he would reveal Yoda to the galaxy and throw the Republic into complete panic and chaos. Around this time, Anakin had become extremely powerful in the Force. He had been training under Obi-Wan for a decade, but also received lots of training from Master Windu to ensure that his abilities are honed and realized. He was an extremely powerful Jedi, and Palpatine came to fear that the prophecy might be true and Anakin Skywalker would destroy them. Because of this, Sidious knew that now was the time to reveal Yoda and send him to kill Anakin. Anakin and Obi-Wan are sent to Christophsis during the Clone Wars by the Jedi Council. This was a major campaign and led to a grueling battle. The clones were pushed to the brink, but they were able to place themselves into an advantageous position to win. However, as Obi-Wan and Anakin begin a flank to the enemy lines, they are greeted by Darth Yoda. Anakin and Obi-Wan were shocked to see their old friend, asking them where he has been all this time and why he is here now. In their minds, they believed that Yoda had seen the turmoil that the Clone Wars had created and decided to help the Jedi win the war. But instead, the old Grand Master ignites his red lightsaber and leaps towards them. The Jedi are starstruck and don't know what to do, being forced into a position where they must ignite their lightsabers and block the attacks from Yoda. Yoda showed no signs of mercy, no clear motive, just a simple goal of killing Anakin and Obi-Wan. The Jedi were immediately placed on the defensive, with trepidation painted across their faces. Yoda was so unbelievably strong, far greater than anything either Jedi had ever faced. He was able to focus his attention on Kenobi and kill him brutally. Anger rushes over Anakin's face. He couldn't believe what had just happened. The Chosen One swings for the hills, letting his hatred take over as he tries to kill Yoda. But Yoda simply raises his hands and shoots lightning from his fingertips in addition to choking him into the air. Palpatine had ensured that this battle was televised on a private HoloNet communication so that when Yoda killed the Jedi Council would see. Yoda decapitates Anakin Skywalker. When the council received the footage, they were absolutely shocked and terrified. Windu knew how dangerous this was. He and Plo Koon, who was second in command after Yoda left the Order, discussed what to do in depth. But they couldn't come up with an answer. After learning about Anakin's death, the people of the Republic began to question the Jedi. Anakin was the poster boy for the Order, and arguably the only Jedi that the Republic actually liked and supported. With his death, the Republic completely turns on the Jedi. They always wondered that if someone as honorable as Yoda had left the Order, then something must be terribly wrong with the Jedi. There had been more Jedi leave the Order in the last 3 decades than its entire history. Corruption in the Order was spreading, and the Jedi were becoming more and more vulnerable. The Republic was losing faith in the Jedi. Sidious was pleased with his apprentice's work, and knew that now was the time for the final stage of his grand plan. To conclude the war was simple. He reveals himself as the Sith Lord before the Jedi, to which Windu sends 4 Jedi to apprehend and kill him, but he aligns this exposure with the invasion of Coruscant, led by General Grievous, Count Dooku, and Darth Yoda. The entire Separatist fleet enters the system and begins to attack the planet. The Republic acted as fast as possible, sending cruisers into orbit to stop the invasion and buy themselves some time. However, some droids managed to get through and get to the city below as mass devastation and chaos ensued. Yoda and Dooku were sent to the ground to lead the forces, but Yoda quickly abandoned the troops and aided Sidious in his fight. Back at Palpatine's office, Windu, Fisto, Kolar, and Tin ignite their lightsabers and fight the Sith Lord. Sidious was able to kill them all except Windu, who could tell was far stronger than the rest. Sidious uses all 7 forms of lightsaber combat against Windu, but unexpectedly, he can tell that he is losing. Windu is on the front foot and moments away from disarming Sidious until something in his mind causes him to freeze. He can sense his old friend and mentor, Master Yoda, close by. This distraction places him on the back foot, and Sidious tries to take the advantage. Eventually, Yoda enters the room and sees Windu, who is absolutely shocked at who he has become. He tries to fend them both off, but ultimately dies to their blades. Sidious takes this opportunity and executes Order 66, turning the entire clone army against the Jedi. Suddenly, the Jedi on Coruscant have to fight against the droids and clones, leading to an absolute massacre. This didn't last the better part of an hour. It was done. The Jedi Order finished. Palpatine would go to the Senate and explain how the Jedi attempted to take over, something that the senators weren't all surprised about, having lost faith in their abilities and motives. Sidious would then present Master Yoda, someone who the entire Senate and Republic loved after hundreds of years of service. They didn't know the monstrosities that he had committed, and that he was responsible for the death of the poster boy Anakin Skywalker. Yoda would explain to the Senate that the reason he left the Order was because they had begun plans to take over the galaxy and overthrow the Senate, and he wanted nothing to do with it. Yoda had told the Chancellor, and since he had been working tirelessly to keep himself alive around the Order. But the Jedi did not succeed. They failed. Sidious raises his arms as he turns the Republic into the First Galactic Empire, causing the Senate to roar in approval. Later that night, as Sidious and Yoda celebrate their hard-fought victory and destruction of the Jedi, Yoda knows that the time has come. He reaches for his lightsaber and ignites it, pointing the crimson blade before Palpatine's throat and challenging him to a duel. With Yoda corrupted to the dark side, he's inherited the will of the Sith, and thus, the will to take over the mantle of Sith Lord. Sidious smirks. He knew this day would come. They fight in his office, and the sparks of red can be seen for miles across the city. Sidious believed he had a strong chance in this fight, but he had underestimated how powerful his apprentice had come. Darth Yoda is able to overcome Sidious and strike him to the floor. He blasts the Sith Lord with lightning, and he winces in pain. Yoda stands above him triumphant as he slices Palpatine's head from his body. Darth Yoda is the Emperor of the Galaxy. If you enjoyed today's video, you must watch What If Yoda Turned to the Dark Side and What If Yoda Trained Anakin. Please check out our membership page if you would like to support the channel. It really helps us out. Thank you all for watching, and may the Force be with you.